Black and White is a 2001 video game developed by Lionhead Studios and published by Electronic Arts and Feral Interactive for Microsoft Windows and Mac OS. A god game, it includes elements of artificial life, strategy, and fighting games. The player acts as a god and takes control over villages from across several islands. Black and White features a unique gameplay element, a creature that the player can raise and teach. The game was highly anticipated and overall well received. It was followed by an expansion, Black and White Creature Isle, and a sequel, Black and White 2. A port for the Sega Dreamcast was in development but was cancelled due to the end of the system's production life. Plot: the player begins the game as a newly created god, born from the prayers of a family. After saving the family's drowning son, the player follows the grateful family to their village. There, the player chooses a creature. The plot advances as the player completes main, gold story scrolls, and side, silver reward scrolls, quests. The player discovers a massive creature, who tells of a god known as Nemesis, his former master, who desires to destroy all other gods and reign supreme as the one true god. Nemesis becomes the principal antagonist in the game. The player is told of the Creed, an energy source with the ability to destroy gods. Nemesis then destroys his former creature and attacks the player's village. A mysterious vortex opens that the player enters to escape Nemesis. The vortex transports the player onto a second island. The player is greeted by another god, Kazar, who sent the player the vortex and asks for the player's aid against another god, Lithis, who is Nemesis' underling, in exchange for the resources to rebuild the player's village. However, Nemesis destroys Kazar and steals Kazar's piece of the Creed. Lithis then kidnaps the player's creature, taking it through a vortex to another land. In the third land, the creature is being held in stasis by 3 magical pillars. The player must take over 3 villages to free the creature. Then Lithis gives the player a piece of the Creed and opens a vortex to a land where another can be found. The player returns to the first land, which is now cursed by Nemesis. Fireballs and lightning rain from the sky. The player must complete 3 quests to deactivate the curses. Finally, when a piece of the Creed is claimed by aiding a cursed village, Nemesis appears and invites the player to his realm. On the last island, Nemesis curses the player's creature, causing him to slowly change alignments, shrink, and grow weaker. The player must take over villages to undo the curse and defeat Nemesis. When the final piece of the Creed is obtained, the player destroys Nemesis once and for all, leaving the player as the last remaining god in the world. Gameplay: the player takes on the role of a god ruling over an island populated by various tribes. The player's control over the island is manifested in the hand, an animated on-screen hand which can move or throw people and objects, tap houses to wake their occupants, cast miracles, and do many other things. Use of the keyboard and buttons in the game is deliberately low, to add to the sense of realism. The mouse-controlled hand can perform every function in the game. In later patches, the hand can also be controlled by an Essential Reality P5 glove, a consumer-level virtual reality glove. Generally speaking, the goal of a level is to gain control over every village on the island. This is accomplished through the performance of impressive acts that will cause the villagers to believe in the player. Villagers can be swayed by everything from helping them with day-to-day tasks to terrorizing them with fireballs and lightning storms. Another important element of the gameplay is the player's creature, a pet of sorts that can be trained to perform the same actions as the player. Thanks to the game's complex AI, developed by Richard Evans, this creature is trained by being placed on a leash while the player demonstrates the action the creature is to learn using the hand. With time and repetition, it can perform complex functions that will allow it to serve as the player's avatar in the world. The principle behind the game's name is the conflict between good and evil. Nearly every action will count towards the player's image in the people's eyes. As such, the player may be seen as a heart-wrenchingly good god or an utterly evil one. The London interface will shift according to the player's alignment. A good god will have a white marble temple, a shining white hand, and a peaceful village filled with light. Conversely, an evil god will have a charred, clawed hand, a black temple sprouting venomous red spikes, and thoroughly terrified villages. Good players try to win over villages through constant help. Common tactics are to donate food and wood, construct buildings, protect the village from other gods, send missionaries, and use the creature to entertain the villagers. However, villagers become bored with the same attempt to impress them being repeated. In other words, if boulders flying overhead become too frequent, they will lose their effect. This forces the player to mix up the methods he uses to convert a village. One can use a balance of good and evil, trying to stay in the gray area. The game presents so many different ways to please a village, however, that the player is never forced to use evil or forced to use good, except in the first level during the tutorial stage. Creature Black and White has a unique feature that allows the player to control a creature that takes the form of an animal. Most of the creatures can be obtained from completing various silver reward scrolls. The player's pet starts out relatively small, and later grows to be the size of a skyscraper. Each creature has its strengths and weaknesses, for example, an ape being intelligent and proficient at learning new tasks, but lacking strength, whereas a tiger is strong but a slow learner. As a god, the player can teach their creature to do simple tasks, such as keeping the village store full of food and wood, performing miracles, performing a range of beneficial, benign, or violent acts, anything from what and when to eat to how to attack enemies' villages using trees as weapons. The creature may also be taught fighting skills in one-on-one battles with other creatures. The creature's attack and defense abilities can be trained and improved. The creature is taught by using a reinforcement learning system. If the creature does something the player does not want it to do, the player can slap the creature. On the other hand, if the creature does something the player approves of, the creature can be stroked. The player's creature will remember the player's response to various actions and will gradually change its behavior accordingly. The game reinforces the choices and learning of the creature by providing visual feedback. For instance, the creature will change its appearance based on its alignment. An evil wolf will sport glowing eyes and massive fangs and claws, whereas a good one will turn a startling shade of purple and glow gently. Lionhead Studios used the belief, desire, intention model based on work of Michael Bratman to simulate creatures' learning and decision-making. A creature forms an intention by combining desires, opinions and beliefs. Beliefs are attribute lists that store data about various world objects. Desires are goals the creature wants to fulfill expressed as simplified perceptrons. Opinions describe ways of satisfying a desire using decision trees. For each desire, the creature selects the belief that it has the best opinion about, thus forming an intention or goal. Reception. Critics initially awarded Black and White with high praise, averaging 90% at both Metacritic and Gamer rankings, based on preliminary gameplay. Some critics, after spending more time reviewing the game, altered their judgment. Black and White was selected by GameSpy as the most overrated game of all time in an article published in September 2003, who cited a lack of true interaction with the game's townspeople and poor use of the much-lauded creatures among reasons the game ultimately disappointed. IGN mentioned the game in one of their podcasts discussing overrated games.